At the World Economic Forum, where Dlodlo is standing by with the new Communications Minister, Dlodlo.
Good afternoon, good morning, Kendall, from the World Economic Forum in Durban. Well, alongside this very big conference, the World Economic Forum, the world also celebrates World Press Freedom Day. It's an international event celebrated not only by South Africa, but the world over. We have our new Minister of Communications, Ms. Dlodlo, and I just want to find out her vision for this new portfolio that she holds and what her thoughts are on issues such as media freedom and other matters that have or that do relate to communication, such as your digital, the investment into technology of broadcasting and so forth. Minister, thank you so much for making time to speak to us. Firstly, today we celebrate World Press Freedom Day. Give us your thoughts about the extent of media freedom in Africa as a whole, you know, what you make of it and how it can be improved so that the next time that we look into an event such as this, we actually, you know, have strides that we say we can make. We do know that there are other countries that still suffer or lag behind when it comes to media freedom. What is your vision or what's your view with regards to World Press Freedom?
Well, it's a guaranteed right of every citizen to associate, and if those who want to be associated with the world of journalism, that is their fundamental right. But they're also protected in terms of our legislation, and we're also members of the Open Government Partnership, and South Africa sits on the steering committee where these rights are guaranteed, and we respect the right of journalists to go about their business, to report on issues. I think we have to be one of those countries where journalists are not harassed and frustrated in their work. So we do uphold the values of ensuring that we have a press that is free from manipulation.
Let's talk about the communication needs, particularly in Africa, the next frontier for Africa. We are now in a digital era where broadcasting is not as broadcasting as we know it today, and it is poised to change. Are we adequately prepared for the changing world of digitization, particularly in the broadcasting space?
Well, I would hope that you in SABC are poised to meet those challenges and to make those changes. But I think what is important is for us to look at a funding model for the SABC that will ensure that the SABC lives up to the challenges that are faced in a digital world, but also the onus is also on the department to ensure that it rolls out the digital migration program so as to ensure larger content and also to invite new partners on board to work with us to ensure that there is better quality content that is provided, and also from a digital perspective the internet is available to our people. But I think more than that, also looking at the fact that in South Africa we have, I think, the highest cost in the world for data, and I think together with the Minister of Telecommunications, we need to look into that to ensure that the data costs in South Africa are brought down. We can't be a nation that has so much inequality, but the poor subsidize the rich in terms of the purchase and the use of data.
I'm glad that you touch on the issue of the SABC and the issue of cost as well. And we also know the kind of financial problems that the state broadcaster or the public broadcaster is facing right now. We have a new board as well. What are your thoughts in terms of the outline plans that they've made to bring back the SABC into profitability once again?
Well, I think it's a process that is going to take a bit of time. We have a board that is in place. We are in consultation and engagement with the Treasury on some of the issues. We are going to be talking to the banks as well to ensure that there is sufficient capital within the SABC that makes it a viable public service broadcaster.
I know that a lot of people will want to know, it's only been a few weeks or maybe close to a month that you have been in this portfolio, but your vision for the communication space in South Africa. Let's include the issue of digital migration there, and just your holistic view of how you would like to see the communication space in South Africa being. What is your vision?
I think our people, both from a political and a socio-economic perspective, can only grow when they have access to information. And I think that's the greatest challenge that South Africans face. We had a discussion this morning in the Youth Forum where people were saying that there isn't sufficient information to help us understand what opportunities are out there. There isn't sufficient, there aren't sufficient platforms to help us to see who is doing what and where, because those are the people that would look up to and the mentorship issue. So I think what we need to be developing as a department is to enhance that sector, to make sure that it is accessible to everybody, but packaging our information and messaging so that it impacts on the lives of our people, so that people can have access to information that informs them on the opportunities created by government, created by the public sector, by the private sector, but what opportunities are there in their communities to get the voices of communities shared with the rest of the country. And I think that growth needs to extend beyond the borders of South Africa so that we're able to share with the rest of the continent what it is that we're doing in South Africa and get to learn and hear from other countries as well in terms of the growth of broadcasting.
Minister, let me wrap it up by probing your thoughts on the investment that is made by other broadcasters into Africa. For instance, we see your likes of your Fox network moving into Africa. Do you think that there's enough space for international players to also come set up shop in Africa? Is the policy space right?
Well, I haven't looked at the policy around broadcasting to the extent that I could be able to intelligently respond to your question. But from the face of it, I can say to you that I think the channels of communications need to be opened. If other television stations or radio networks come into our country, there is a lot that can go on in terms of the information that I was talking about in the communications, but also the divide between nations can somehow be lessened. But in our case, that's why I'm saying that we need to look at the funding model for the SABC, because that's why we also need to go out there in the different areas, whether it is Africa or it is other continents, to make sure that the voice of South Africa is heard, the product of South Africa is sold, the country in itself, the brand, is positioned such that it becomes an identifiable brand in the rest of the world.
I know I said this was going to be the last question, but I must ask you if you have any scheduled meetings during this World Economic Forum with certain people perhaps that you can share with us?
Right now we're going to be doing a walkabout with the President, and there are interviews that are lined up with the different South African broadcasters. I had an interview this morning with Euronews as well. And there are forums that I'm going to be attending just to support my counterparts.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dlodlo, Minister of Communications in South Africa. And Kendall, that is where we leave it. We were with the Minister of Communications, Ms. Dlodlo, and she was giving us her vision about the broadcasting space in the country. One of the telling things that she did share with us is the issue of making sure that we package news in a way that it informs the public and gives them the information that they need as and when they need it. And it's back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Diabo. It's a change of guard here in studio. Thank you so much for that report there.